Hello, my love, and welcome back to the Energy Expansion Podcast. And we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, which is energy, all things energetics, the unseen world, the unseen forces that are at play all day, every day, 24/7. There are so many different things about this conversation that over the years, I have found absolutely one, mind blowing, and number two, life changing. Because when you have this awareness of how literally everything works and how everything is connected, and then the fact that you get to play a role in that if you so desire, this is what we're going to talk about today. Like, understanding this conversation is at the heart of what I call conscious reality creation. This is where you realize what a powerful creator you are. And now somebody like myself who leads and lives from such a faith-based place, I do not for 1 second think that I'm doing this all on my own. I say conscious reality creation, but my unique belief system is that we are constantly co-creating with what I call God. Maybe you call universe, source, your higher power. Honestly, a little bit of all of it, right? And so this is literally like learning how to wave a magic wand. I don't necessarily think that this conversation is going to be like energetics 101. Maybe we'll have that conversation at some point. But I really just wanted to share some of the things that have me feel most excited and nuggets of wisdom around energetics and like understanding this conversation that changed my life. What I believe to be true, and Albert Einstein is kind of coined for saying this. I don't know if he said it actually or not, but it's gone back to him that energy is everything and everything is energy. Energy is everything and everything is energy. And when you understand it, you can literally have, do, be, create, change, transform anything you desire. So let's first talk about, we're going to do like a little bit of energetic basics here. What is energy? We just got done saying it. Energy is everything. Energy makes up our thoughts, our emotions, our words, our intentions, our actions. Energy is what makes up everything that you can see with your eye, like literally every item, every fiber of your being, everything you can see, everything you don't see, things that you feel in your body that you can feel around you, right? Aura, someone can walk into a room and you can see them with your eyeballs, but you can also feel their energy as maybe it merges with yours. You can be scrolling through social media and not have to be in the same room. You don't have to be in the same country or continent as somebody, but you can feel their energy. Everything seen and unseen carries a frequency. There is a famous quote by Nikola Tesla that says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Your energy introduces you before you can even say a word. It goes back to when you walk into a room, you can almost instantaneously feel that room. And, I believe that everyone can tap into this. I don't believe that everybody has fully tapped into this gift. And so this is something that me understanding energetics and intuition and being able to distinguish and decipher what I'm feeling in any given moment and like understanding why I'm feeling that and understanding what's mine versus what's someone else. And sometimes we can pick up things, energetics, unseen forces from others that are not actually ours. And then being able to address that, being able to protect and preserve our energy, knowing how to clear and cleanse and ground and reset our energy at the end of a day or when we're leaving an event so that we can make sure we're not carrying around something that doesn't belong to us. All of that is so important. And the other thing to think about, we often talk about in the spaces that I'm in, these conversations around manifestation and law of attraction. And I think sometimes the way that manifestation is taught is a little bit diluted, a little bit misconstrued. Manifestation is very, very, very real. But again, I personally don't love the way that a lot of people talk about it in the coaching space. And so when I talk about manifestation, I'm going to talk about it in terms of frequency, in terms of law of attraction. The law of attraction is a universal law. It is literally just as real as the law of gravity, right? I don't think there's anybody right now on the planet who's going to deny the fact that gravity is real. And it's a bit undeniable because it's what keeps us rooted to the ground, right? But there's a slew of other universal laws. It's just, this is how the universe works. They are undeniable universal truths. And so when you start to understand this, you can start to look at and relate to, really honestly, everything from a different perspective. When you realize that everything carries a vibration and a frequency, and that you have a say in the matter in terms of what you're welcoming into your life, you can start making choices that are actually aligned with what you want, what you value, who it is that you're committed to becoming. Inside of the work that I do with my clients, I talk a lot about being mindful of consumption. And notice when I say consumption, what do you think of? My mind automatically goes to, like, what are we putting in our bodies? Like, what kinds of food are we consuming? What kinds of beverages are we consuming? And that's a really good place to start, right? Because everything that you are literally feeding your physical body with carries a vibration. I'm not a health coach. I'm not a scientist, but what I do know is that things that err on the side of being more natural, coming from nature, whole foods, things that are not processed, those can quite literally be measured. You can measure frequency, and those types of things carry a higher frequency than something that is made in a lab or highly processed, right? When it comes to things that we're consuming, whether it's food or beverages. So keep that in mind. Allow yourself to have a heightened level of awareness when it comes to the vibration of what you're quite literally feeding yourself with. Now, beyond that, every show we watch, music we listen to, the apps we scroll on, the feeds that we curate. Just earlier today, I was scrolling through my Instagram and I remember thinking, I am so grateful for my Instagram feed. Oh my goodness. I feel like it wouldn't hurt if I spent a little less time connected to my phone and connected to social media apps. But man, when I am on those apps, literally all I see are things that expand my mind, that make me smile, that inspire me, that bring me joy, that have me feel connected to people and things and concepts that I love. It's all really good and beautiful things. And that is very intentional. That did not happen by accident. It's me being mindful of where I'm feeding my attention. When I'm scrolling and I stop my scroll, where do I land? And thank goodness the algorithm pays attention because I love what it's feeding me. So consumption also has to do with, what are we letting into our mind? What are the things that we're looking at? What are the things that we're receiving when it comes to our sense of hearing? When it comes to what we are listening to, all of it plays a role and all of it has an impact. That's a little bit of energetics 101, but early on when I learned that was so mind-blowing. Everything that you give your attention to is feeding you in some way. When you take a moment to think about that right now and where you've been placing your attention over the last few minutes, hours, days, and weeks, Is it actually? All right, love, real quick pause because I have to tell you about something that is truly life changing. If you've been in my world for any amount of time, then there is a 99.9% chance that you have heard me talk about Energy Expansion Academy, which is my signature group coaching program where I teach the exact tools, rituals, mindset shifts that helped me create a life that goes beyond my wildest dreams and has transformed the lives of hundreds of women that I've had the honor of serving. And for the first time ever, it is now available as a self-paced experience. That means you get to move through this powerful transformation on your own terms, in your own timing, and in full alignment with your life. This is for the woman who's ready to shift her energy, elevate her mindset, and finally become the most confident, fulfilled, and successful version of herself. Without the hustle, without the overwhelm, and without the second guessing. If you've been feeling the nudge to join us inside of EEA, then this, my love, is your sign. You'll find the link in the show notes or just DM me EEA on Instagram and I'll personally send it your way. Now, let's get back to the episode that you came for. What you're giving your attention to, is that actually in return giving you what you want in terms of a feeling, a sensation, a vibration, the thoughts that it has you think? Just take a moment to sit with that. And if not, it's never too late to make some changes around what you're letting into your space physically, mentally, emotionally, on a vibrational level, right? And then speaking of vibration, I'm going to share a slide in the show notes. I had shared this a few episodes ago. I had the opportunity to do a really incredible talk about reinvention and identity and how you can recreate and reinvent and reclaim your identity at any point in time. And part of that conversation, we touched on energetics, and I had shared some slides from a presentation just so you have access. If you're anything like me, then you're probably a very visual person. You can check out the show notes below. But I'm going to share a slide of what is known as the scale of consciousness, which was discovered and created by Dr. David Hawkins. And the very first time I laid my eyes on the scale of consciousness, it quite literally blew my mind. Like, I understood what I was seeing right away, and so many things made sense in that moment. But essentially, the scale of consciousness, and you might see it if you were to Google this, you'll probably see it represented in a lot of different ways. But the most common, and what I believe to be the most helpful and accurate representation of the scale of consciousness, is it's an upside down triangle, like a funnel. Okay. And at the very bottom of the funnel, you're going to find the heaviest, densest emotions, which also happen to carry the lowest frequencies. And then as you move your way up the scale, you're going to notice that the energetic frequency, as that increases and gets higher, the frequencies become expanded. They take up more space. Why? Because they're lighter. They literally don't weigh as much. There's a lot less density, and they can move faster. When you can move faster and you're lighter, you can take up a lot more space, if you will. So the energetic scale of consciousness on the very bottom is 0. I want to say, and I don't even actually think that this part is that accurate, but like, that is death. It's when our soul, our energy has left our physical vessel, and this is a metaphor really, and our physical vessel no longer holds life. Now, when I said this isn't that accurate, it's because even a lifeless body still, like, I'm literally like grabbing my arm, it is still flesh. Nothing will change the fact that it is flesh, right? But if something were to completely lose its soul, lose its energetic, and I want to be really mindful of how I'm speaking here, because a soul can leave a body, but that does not mean the soul is lost. Are you with me? When people transition from the physical realm, they still very much exist, in my humble opinion, as a soul and as an energetic body. We just ditched the meat suit that we were in for a few decades here on this planet. But your soul, your energy will continue to live on. And that can take what I believe to be many different shapes. And that can look a lot of different ways. I believe in reincarnation. And now this is super interesting because, again, I think I mentioned it something along the lines at the very beginning of this episode around me being a faith-based person. The Bible doesn't talk anything about reincarnation. And I love using scripture. I love turning to my Bible. It's really healing. And also, I feel very strongly that I have been here before. This is not my first rodeo on the planet. And I feel like at least one, maybe two, I don't know if all three of my kids have been here before. I think that our unique family blend in our family of five, I think we have a really cool mix of old souls and new souls as well. And yeah, so going off on that little tangent, back to the metaphor, the scale of consciousness, 0 would be the soul and the energy has left the body, right? And like gone on somewhere else, gone back to the conscious collective, gone back to heaven, may choose to incarnate as a human being or as something else in a different lifetime. Gosh, this conversation's so fun and so expansive. But for the sake of like being here in this human body, this human experience that you and I are having, I wanted to give you that example because just above 0, like no vibration whatsoever, is a little emotion known as shame. So shame is technically the lowest vibrating emotion and experience of them all. When measured on the energetic scale of consciousness, I want to say it's a certain amount of measurements per second. I forgot off the top of my head exactly what it is, or like milliseconds. It vibrates at a measurement of 20. Okay. And the energetic scale of consciousness goes all the way up to 1,000, maybe even more than that. And at the very, 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 very tippy top is enlightenment. And so not a lot of people, like very, very few people in their lifetime, in their human experience, hang out at enlightenment. That is like ascended spiritual master who has like spent their entire life meditating on top of a mountain, not having to experience conflict, or having experienced some amount of conflict and having healed tremendously and got to the other side of that. And so most people are probably going to find themselves somewhere in the middle part of that scale, vibrating in, a few hundred. So for instance, fear vibrates at 100, courage vibrates at 200, love vibrates at 500, peace vibrates at 600. And so we are going to experience a whole range of emotions. Why? Because that's why we said yes. That's why, as a spiritual being, right? We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings. We're souls, first and foremost, having a human experience. And one of the reasons why we said yes was that so we could experience the full range of the scale of consciousness. That is quite literally what we signed up for. So getting mad about feeling shame or guilt or anger or fear, I get that. I don't love that for me, and I don't love that for you. And also, I know that that's kind of the point. It's so that we could experience it all. And what I really truly believe is these concepts, like you can't have light without the darkness, right? Like you can't have good without bad. If you had good without bad, how would you know that the good was good, right? It's where when we experience heartache, right? We're going through something that is quite literally breaking our heart wide open. And that's an interesting metaphor to use because I think that sometimes our heart can be broken wide open for really good things. But in this case, I'm saying like, you don't really know overwhelming love and joy without knowing heartache. I once heard someone say that like the experience of grief, right? Grief is going to be a little bit lower, quite a bit lower on the energetic scale of consciousness. When you think about grieving, that's heavy, that's sad. It like my body wants to contract. And I once heard someone say that grief is literally just love looking for somewhere to land. Grief is just love looking for a place to go, right? And so there's this like literal connection, this yin and this yang and this flip side of the coin to all of this. And when you see things that way, there's this beauty. There's this beauty in it. And so understanding the energetic scale of consciousness and then starting to realize and play with like, where is your baseline emotion? The other thing that I want you to know about this is we all have pockets, like little pockets stored in our body, in our energy field, in our tissues of things like shame and guilt and fear and anger and sadness. Again, not experiencing those things is not the point, so don't let it be. But we all have a baseline frequency. So you can have a baseline frequency of love vibrating at 500 while also having pockets of those other emotions. And you can identify and clear those. And then you may have an experience a few weeks down the road where, you know, a lower vibrating emotion gets triggered again. And it all serves a purpose. It's all here to have us feel and to know and to learn something about our lives, about the human experience, about one another. And so it's all good and it's all right and it's all beautiful. And also, if you really want to understand the law of vibration and the law of attraction, getting familiar with the energetic scale of consciousness and starting to intuitively notice, where are you vibrating most frequency? Like, what is your baseline frequency? This is very exciting that you can make really powerful, positive, intentional changes in your life to adjust your frequency, to raise your baseline frequency. As you raise your frequency, as you expand your way of being, you're now going to be able to welcome in and call in entirely new opportunities, entirely new relationships and circumstances and blessings and wonderful life surprises. So that was one of the other things when it comes to energetics. The energetic scale of consciousness is absolutely mind-blowing. The other thing, I have this book in front of me right now, and I have a little story to share with you very much in real time. The link between energy, emotions, and our physical body is in freaking sane. So our physical body works as a mirror for what is happening within us emotionally and energetically. As I say that, you can probably see how that makes sense. There's so much work that absolutely proves this. There's a book that is coming to mind. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And that talks about trauma being stored in the body. And this conversation is also speaking to the fact that unresolved emotional energy gets stored in our body, like literally in the tissues of our cells, in our muscle tissues, in our gut. It can manifest in so many different ways: physical pain, different types of disease. I'll never forget the first time I heard a spiritual teacher break down the word disease. It's literally dis, right? When something is out of alignment, out of flow within your body, it can very well manifest as disease. There are so many resources. I will link them in the show notes. I have one in front of me right now, and it's one that I literally have at my right hand next to me for every client session I do. If I'm going to be leaving my home to go to an event, definitely a professional event, but even a personal event, I typically bring this book. It's called The Secret Language of Your Body. I'm going to crack this bad boy open in just a second because I want to share some things with you around all of this. I've probably been using this one for about a year, but there is one by Louise Hay called Heal Your Body. And there's another really great reference guide. I always kind of chuckle because it sounds morbid, but it's the coolest tool. It's a little reference guide called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And the way that you can use these types of tools is if you're having some sort of pain or discomfort. So like something happening in your lower back. It's really cool because I've been diving into this stuff for a really long time. So as soon as I say lower back, I'm like, oh, that typically has to do with finances. It has to do with money. Not all of the time. Okay. So if you're hurting your lower back and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go look at my bank account. That may or may not be the thing, but there is an energetic and emotional connection there along with many other things. So for instance, I'm going to share this with you. I woke up 3 days ago with a little bit of a toothache, like a mild toothache. And it was the bottom, where is it? So it's like bottom right. And I was looking up a chart. So I'm bringing up teeth right now in my Secret Language of the Body book. But also I know that our teeth, every single tooth, like teeth have numbers. You know, when you go to the dentist and they like count out which one it is, and they'll kind of give a little read and write down the health of that tooth. So every single tooth has a specific association with a body part, and it also has an association with like things that could be happening emotionally. So I woke up the other day, and I want to bring this up on my phone. So I woke up a few mornings ago, and it was, again, bottom right. At this point, I know you can't tell, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I'm in borderline excruciating pain right now. It went from a mildly sore tooth to like, it doesn't feel good to eat on that side of my mouth. So like, let me switch to the left side, to then waking up yesterday morning and it felt like I got punched like really hard in the jaw. And then I started rubbing my jaw and I realized it was swollen, to then waking up this morning and my husband going, I can literally see how swollen your face is right now. Like it went from being like an internal ouch 2 or 3 days ago to my husband being able to visibly see what was going on with me. So what I did, because this is what you do when you're me, I Google the spiritual meaning of teeth. And what I initially thought was tooth number 31. It's actually 30. And they're so closely connected that they're connected to the same thing. It's so interesting as I'm sharing this with you right now in real time. I've looked at this the last few days. I've come back to this graphic again and again and again. But right now, seeing that there's a connection between the lungs. So it's the lung and the large intestine is what 30 and 31, those specific teeth, are associated with. But I had a session with an energy healer this morning, and as we were working together, I was noticing this low-grade pain in my chest, like in my lungs. That's just really interesting. I'm making that connection. There's also an association with chronic grief, sadness, feelings of being trapped, compulsive, and uptight. So vulnerable. That's so vulnerable to share here. So the two things that really stand out for me are grief and sadness. There's just been some big changes. And I think that like deep down, I've pretended like everything's okay and it's no big deal. And whatever we try to convince ourselves when maybe there's something to look at there. And so the grief and the sadness are definitely coming up really big. There's also some of my own work and journaling that I've been feeling prompted to do around grief. So I'll do that today after this podcast recording. So there's that. So teeth. Now I'm opening up. This is so crazy. I'm opening up the Secret Language of the Body book and now looking at like just in general, not necessarily tooth number 30, but in general, it says possible contributing factors are holding on to shame, guilt, fear, anger, blame, bitterness. Could be difficulty making empowering decisions. That is something that feels like it has knocked me on my butt recently. Second guessing my decisions in a way that I have not done in a really long time. It says unresolved childhood issues and frequent self-sabotage. The healing session that I did this morning was all around healing the pattern of self-sabotage. And my inner child, speaking of unresolved childhood issues, my inner child has been attempting to get my attention so strongly. I've been doing more inner child meditations and healing recently than ever before. It also says frustration about your inability to express yourself clearly. Funny enough, you would think like, oh, I don't know, maybe you would think this. I think you would think this. Like Dani, she has a podcast and she has her social media and she's doing all these things and she's speaking on stages. Like that would never apply to her. No, that absolutely feels like it has been applying to me recently, where this little voice inside of me is saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to say. Oh, it's so crazy to say these things out loud, to let you in on all of this, but I'm being really real. And, you know, if all of those things were true, I'm looking up one more thing in this book, what that little voice is saying, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have built a ridiculously successful business. I wouldn't have been able to make a living doing work that I absolutely love. And so the good news is that voice can talk, and also it doesn't have to be the thing that runs the show. That voice can talk, and you can also choose if you're going to believe it or not. The other thing, so literally, this tooth thing is so hardcore. I don't think I shared this with you. Fudge. I was at the dentist this morning. Like, the pain was so bad that I needed to go to the dentist. I was so grateful when they squeezed me in. And exactly what you don't want to happen when you go to the dentist is exactly what happened to me this morning. One of the lovely women who works there, she did my x-ray and she said, you know, the dentist will be in just a minute. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm messing around on my phone. The dentist walks in and he like asks me what brings me in, what's going on. And I tell him, you know, I've had this excruciating pain. It feels like it came out of nowhere. My face is swollen. He like looks, he's like, yeah, your face actually is swollen. And then he turns behind me, the computer's behind me, and he goes, oh no. You never want a dentist to look at your x-rays and say, oh no. And so I turn my head to look at what he's looking at. I don't know what I'm looking at. Have you ever tried to look at a dental x-ray? And they're like, do you see this there? You're like, no, looks like a tooth. It looks like a root. I don't know what that is. But he has a little pointer thing and he's clicking on the screen and he goes, yeah, that tooth is dead. Like it's completely dead. And he called it, I just looked this up here, an abscess. Have you ever had one of those? I've never had one of those. If you had one, that makes two of us now. But he goes, yeah, it's completely dead. And then he looks in my mouth and he clicks on my tooth and that hurt really bad. And he goes, this looks like a perfectly good tooth. And I'm like, I take really good care of my teeth. Like, sir, can you tell me what the heck would cause something like this? And he goes, I don't know. Maybe someone did some voodoo on you or something. Not joking. Maybe someone did some voodoo on you or something. And I mean, he was totally kidding. But I was like, this is crazy because I'm going to record a podcast episode later all about energetics and what's going on with my teeth. And you bring up voodoo? What? None of this is voodoo. But here's what I wanted to tell you. This is my life and I'm obsessed with it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Hopefully you're leaning in and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Literally, like half of this podcast is about what's happening this week with my teeth. But this is the lens through which I view everything. And it's not like a hypochondriac, like always looking for something that's wrong. It's noticing with my eyes and with my feelings, right? Because some things we can't see. We've already talked about things that are unseen and how powerful they are. And I believe that the unseen is more real than the things that we can see with our eyes. I know that sounds crazy, but I believe that to be true. I believe more in what we cannot see than what we can see. Let that land for a minute. But so I looked up the meaning of the specific tooth, and then I looked at what do teeth in general mean. And then we're going to take it a layer deeper. So this is known as an abscess, when maybe there's different terminologies, but that was what he used. And part of the pain now is this tooth that is now dead in my mouth is causing an infection. So I'm going to go get antibiotics right after this podcast episode because I tried to get them before the podcast episode and they were not ready. So we'll try that again in just a minute. So when I'm looking at this book, list of ailments, an abscess, that's how you say it. Abscess has to do with irritation, frustration, swelling, constantly replaying old hurts and criticism, negative outlook on life, angry emotions that have festered and become inflamed, suppressing something that you do not want to look at, even though it keeps resurfacing. So that feels big, that feels deep, that feels heavy. And also there are parts of that that feel wildly accurate. What did I tell you? I told you that there's grief work that I know I've been called to do and I haven't done yet, right? And this is where emotions, energy, and what's happening within and around us are so important. Another little mind-blowing aha moment in relation to this conversation is the first time I heard someone explain that emotion literally means energy in motion. This is a really big deal. I am in I want to say a season. That is not the correct thing to say because a season is like, oh, this is the blip of time. I am in a full-blown era. I am in a phase of life. Like I have up-leveled and we are in the level called when an emotion comes up, we feel the emotion. We do not try to stuff it down. We do not try to bottle it up. Why? Because so much of the pain and the frustration and the irritation and the agitation and the stuckness and the anger and the sadness and whatever it is that you might be feeling that feels like it's on repeat, that keeps coming up. The reason that happens is because we, most of the time, hopefully you can't relate to this, but I have a feeling you can. Most of the time, we don't let ourselves fully feel what we're feeling. Right? It's like I'll feel a little bit and then I'll shove it down. Or you'll get the lump in the throat and you'll want to say the thing, but you don't say the thing. So you swallow the lump in your throat. That gets lodged in your body, your emotional body, your energetic body, and then can manifest in your physical body. Hello, dead tooth. And that is not what we want. I don't want that for you. And I also don't want that for me. So the next time you feel or sense an emotion rising to the surface, for the love of everything, please let yourself feel. Please let yourself feel those emotions because emotion is energy in motion. You have to do something to shift your state, right? Some of the best ways to move energy are through breath. That's why I'm a big fan of breath work. Movement, like moving your body in any way, shape, or form, dancing, jumping, shaking, exercising, whatever it might be. So breath, movement, sound, right? Like if you're going to cry, let yourself cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you feel like you can't scream or yell where you are, grab a big old pillow and scream and yell into the pillow or get in your car. There's nothing more fun and liberating than just screaming and yelling your head off in your car. You ever do that? I do that sometimes. I teach my kids these things too. So emotion is energy in motion. Let yourself feel your feels. Kind of goes without saying, and I hope that you get this by now. If you're still listening to this episode, if you're still listening to the whole freaking podcast, everything we're talking about could not be further away from like woo-woo or metaphysical. This is all rooted in physics. This is all based on research. It's measurable. It is like real, true wisdom. And it's good stuff, man. If you let yourself really, truly dive into the realm of all things energetics, it feels like it almost goes without saying. It's funny when people say that, but then they're going to say the thing. So I'm going to say the thing that this is something that I am so incredibly passionate about. This is what I teach. It's what I live. It's what I practice. It's what I preach. And I really, truly believe that when you have the foundational understandings of energetics and the way that the universe works, like basic universal laws and divine truths, it completely transforms the way that you approach life, that you live life, that you create, where you place your focus and your intention. Your energy is your greatest asset. Your energy is sacred. Your frequency is powerful AF, and it is something that you get to cultivate. It is something that you get to choose. It is something that you can change and transform at any moment, any point throughout your journey. And so today was all about my ahas and my favorite things about energetics. There's so much more, but these were the things today, especially with this whole tooth thing. And admittedly, that was one of the things that inspired the conversation today, is as I was doing my own grand rising morning activation, AKA like my morning ritual, I opened up that book, The Secret Language of Your Body, and I was really curious. I had a feeling, because I'd done some research online, that what I was experiencing, the pain in my jaw and on my tooth, I kept seeing the word abscess come up. I didn't actually know what it meant, but so I looked up, what do teeth represent in general? What does an abscess mean in general? What about these specific teeth? And I remember thinking, like, this is so freaking cool. I mean, not the fact that I have a dead tooth that is now infected and I can feel my heartbeat in my right jaw right now. That's not so cool. But the fact that I'm able to understand what's actually happening and what could be contributing to this versus just taking everything at surface level. There is nothing about me, and I desire nothing that has to do with surface level. I want to understand how things are connected and like what makes things tick, what makes us tick, and take it or leave it. All of this, everything I discovered today really resonated with me. And so these are the tools that I use again, day in and day out. These are the tools that I share with my clients, some of the many, many, many tools in my toolkit that I've been building for the last 13 years. I'm going to go do a little bit of grief work, like right after this podcast. Here's my plan in case you want my to-do list. I'm going to go pick up the antibiotic. I do not like taking antibiotics unless I absolutely have to. And this is one of those cases where I have to. They're going to extract the tooth. And if I don't take the antibiotics, I won't feel the numbing. And I'm not here to not feel the numbing. So I'm going to pick up the antibiotics. I'm going to dive into some grief journaling and breath work. And I'm going to dive into some just a self-guided EFT, which is known as emotional freedom technique, tapping, a ritual to release a lot of what I was able to uncover today. And I think it's incredible. And I think that I actually know for a fact with absolute certainty that having opened my mind, my heart, my eyes, myself to this type of information and these types of resources over the last decade have dramatically enhanced my overall quality of life and what I've been able to create and who I've become and what I've been able to experience. And so this is the path for me. And I'm so glad that if you feel like it's the path for you, that we're on this path together. And if you want to learn more, there's entire modules, there's hours and hours of content all about energetics and intuition and how to understand it and how to unlock it and how to tap into it. Actual curriculum with slides and teachings and resources and home play, which is like homework, but more fun, along with different types of audio activations, visualizations, hypnosis scripts that you can use day in and day out to support you along your journey. This is what Energy Expansion Academy is all about. It is the culmination of all of the work and the tools, the resources, the things that I've learned that have had the biggest, most profound impact on my journey. First and foremost, I always believe that you are your greatest case study. And in my case, I absolutely believe that. But now at this point, hundreds upon hundreds of the women that I've had the privilege of serving over the years. And if you didn't know, there are multiple ways to join us inside of Energy Expansion Academy. It was originally created as a 4-month transformational coaching program, which I'm currently running. I went live yesterday. I go live every Monday at 9. We have these amazing Zoom sessions 3 times a month. I'm gearing up to prep for the one that we're going to have next week. There's a VIP level where you can join us inside of the program, but when you upgrade to VIP, you also get lots of additional one-on-one support, from one-on-one coaching sessions to unlimited voice and text support for 4 months. That in and of itself is worth its weight in gold. And now, for the first time ever, there is a self-paced option for you to join us inside of Energy Expansion Academy, where you get lifetime access to everything that I teach and all updates, upgrades, everything that I create in the future associated with EEA. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to check the show notes below, but you can also DM me EEA and we can start a conversation. I can get you those links. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I love you so much, and we'll see you next week.